Potential tropical cyclone 8 shows no potential anymore because it went inland without ever becoming a tropical cyclone. However, a ton of moisture, some wind, and heavy rain and flash flooding is still going on in parts of North Carolina. We'll take a look at that. Nice weather will start to fade away during Tuesday in the Northeast as some of that southern moisture begins to creep northward. We'll let you know when it gets there. And we still have remnants of Francine lurking about in the lower Mississippi Valley, although it's not really producing very much other than clouds. But we will discuss all these interesting things tonight on the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast. And of course, you can support the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast if you shop on Amazon by using the referral link that I'm putting on the top and pinning to the top of the chat board momentarily. It's also on the descriptor to this podcast. It doesn't cost you anything. Just do your searching and shopping from that referral link, and Amazon will throw us back a little bit of coin for sending you there. And we appreciate your support by shopping on Amazon. Okay, so another death knell into this coffin about 17 to 24 storms, Joe, today because you couldn't get this system off the Carolina coast had plenty of time. It just needed to produce a well-defined center, and the water temperatures were pretty high. The system was pretty much right over the Gulf Stream. Could not do it.
And so we lose a chance to add a name to the list. And as a result, it, as you just alluded to, loses out on the possibility of at least reaching 17 storms, which is the bottom end of the forecast for activity in hurricane or tropical cyclone activity this year. So I tell you, Joe, I think this may turn out to be maybe either a normal or below normal hurricane season.
And can you imagine if it turned out to be a below normal year?
It just goes to show you we don't know everything, do we?
No, we don't. And by the way, if it's going to do that, if you're a snow lover or a winter weather lover, you want the hurricane season to shut down early because Bill Goodman and I had a conversation about this, and there is a mild correlation. It's not the strongest correlation in the world, but there is a bit of a correlation between when the hurricane season shuts down early in the Atlantic and the subsequent winters that follow tend to be colder and snowier. I'm not predicting that since I don't do long range predictions. I'm just sort of putting that information out there. And I also saw, by the way, talking about weird things, I read the other day that in northern Italy, the snow level fell to just about 2,000 feet, and in the mountains there in the Italian Alps, and it was the earliest snowfall they've ever had.
And what is that going to tell you?
It doesn't tell you anything other than the fact that it's the earliest snowfall that they ever had. I mean, might want to add it to the list of weird things that are happening.
Yeah, well, I tell you, the last 2 years here, we have not had, and I'm speaking about right here in Putnam Valley, but around the tri-state area in general, haven't had really that much to talk about in terms of snowfalls. Last year or last winter, took the snowblower out only twice. And I can tell you that there were many winters up here, and I've been up here now 22 years, where we've had 9, 10, 11 times I've had to take that machine out. So one has to wonder if we're in the midst of a snow drought. Are we going to have another year like the last couple, or will we go in the opposite direction? You say that it's the earliest snowfall in that part of Italy. Maybe, just maybe, we might have one of the large-scale winters that we have not had very much of here.
And then again, maybe not. All I know is I stick by what I say. The more forecasts that come out from the long, let's call them the long rangers, the more forecasts that come out from the long rangers that call for a warm and a mild and snowless winter in the Northeast, I am jumping on the other side of that trade, because those are the same people that also jumped on the the massive tropical storm hurricane season, which so far is not playing out.
It is not playing out at all. As we've been saying, we got into this hurricane season back in the beginning of June or even in May before the season officially began, with people saying this is going to be a hullabaloo year in terms of hurricanes. We likely are going to run through the entire list of names, may have to come up with the secondary list, just, with La Nina and with the warm ocean basin and everything else. And it's turned out to be anything but that.
Blah, 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 blah. I, I, I said yesterday, I'll say this again. Uh, if you're looking at the MDR, the major development region in the tropical Atlantic, it's September 16th. It's it hasn't produced much of anything up until now. It's running out of time in a big way. I think you're going to look if you're looking for development going forward, it's going to probably be inside 60 degrees west. Maybe you'll get the odd storm or two that forms out in the Atlantic. You'll probably get a couple of those down the road. But if you're waiting for something to come off the African coast and march across and become, a hurricane when it's at 40 degrees west and goes all the way, westward toward the islands and beyond, I think we're past that at this point. I really do.
And the question here, how many of you remember it's the 25th anniversary, the silver anniversary of this storm? And I remember it very well. And I know you do too, Joe. On this day in 1999, Hurricane Floyd moved past the tri-state area. And
Do you know
actually,
that I have no recollection of Floyd?
where were you in 1999?
I was at Pix, but I have no recollection of it.
Oh, come on now.
I don't. I don't have any I have no recollection at all about Hurricane Floyd.
Well, this
I have. Oh,
this
wait. I have a little bit of a recollection that there was a lot of wind near the coast for a long period of time, but I don't remember it. At least living in Central Long Island, I just don't remember it.
well, this tropical cyclone actually had been downgraded to a tropical storm by the time it reached the tri-state area, but it brought tremendous rains and severe flooding to much of the Hudson Valley. Now, on average, I'm just saying on average now, 5 to 12 inches of rain fell. There was 5.4 inches at Westchester Airport and 12.43 inches in just 3 hours. Now, think about that for a moment. Over a foot of rain in just 3 hours at Yorktown Heights. That observation was recorded by the late, great Dr. Jerry Thaler, who had kept weather records at Yorktown Heights for many, many decades. Decades. And here in this one storm, over a foot, 12.43 inches in just 3 hours. And I can tell you, working at News 12 Westchester, that all the parkways in Westchester were closed. The Bronx River Parkway, Spring Parkway, Sawmill River Parkway, any parkway that had a body of water associated or affiliated with it, they were closed. They just could not handle all that water. And until we had Hurricane Irene in 2011 and Sandy in 2012, Floyd was probably the most debilitating storm to hit the Hudson Valley in many years. At Central Park, a little over 5 inches of rain fell, forcing many businesses to close early and causing service on some subway lines to be suspended because of track flooding. And it was a pretty amazing event. Again, nothing really in terms of wind, but the amounts of rain that fell with Floyd were nothing short of phenomenal. And until we had Irene 12 years later, Floyd was always the benchmark for how much rain we could see in a very short interval of time. And then Irene came along and dumped about a foot of rain on the tri-state area, and suddenly everybody, well, maybe that's why you forgot Floyd, because everybody suddenly remembered Irene. So but that was on this.
I do have actually. I just went and got it from WPC. Got the surface maps for Floyd, and this is where from the making landfall in southeastern North Carolina, you can see. Here you go. You can see it now. the stationary boundary. Oftentimes, when you get these storms that come up the East Coast, there's usually like one of these long stationary boundaries that runs up and down the coast. And this one ran from the Northeast Gulf all the way up through the Central Carolinas and then all the way through eastern Pennsylvania, upstate New York, and into New England. So it creates the alleyway for this thing to move along. And I'll just show you what happens. It goes inland in North Carolina. It's in northeastern North Carolina by 8 a.m. on the 16th. And then it just continues to move northward, kind of skims the Delaware coast. They still had it as a hurricane at that point. Let me just go back one map. Yep, they still had it as a hurricane at 2 p.m. When it was just right along the coast of the Delmarva Peninsula, and then it was centered probably right over New Jersey, over coastal New Jersey, and moved right over New York City. You know what? I got to go back and look at the stats on this, but I would bet you the reason why it wasn't very memorable for me, possibly because of the fact that I was east of the center. So all the rain at that point probably had shifted to the west side, which is where you were and where most of New Jersey was in eastern Pennsylvania. So maybe I just didn't get much in the way of rain out of this. And then up into New England it went. But I got to double check because I honestly don't remember it that well.
Gloria in 1985, um, Newsday at that time had two editions. They had Long Island Newsday, which still continues today, but they also had an edition for New York City called New York Newsday. And the headline the day after Gloria on the New York edition of Newsday was "The Day We Almost Got It," because all of New York City received, some heavy rain, some gusty winds, but it really wasn't anything really to write home about. But meantime, places that were to the east of the storm track, the storm went across central Long Island, and east of the storm track in much of Suffolk County, that storm did a tremendous amount of damage, both in terms of rainfall and in terms of wind. Some cases, winds gusted past 80 and 90 miles an hour. The radio transmitting tower for WBLI was crashed to the ground by the winds from Hurricane Gloria. And again, meantime, folks in New York said, "Well, it was a pretty good rainstorm. There's no big deal." And this is the opposite. This was probably the opposite of that, where everybody, west of the storm track, New York, New Jersey, I think Pompton Plains was devastated by tremendous rains from that storm. But again, you're right, Joe, probably east of the storm track, where you were on Long Island and also across a good part of Connecticut, it was kind of a windy, somewhat rainy day, but the worst of it was, again, to the west, as opposed to Gloria, which the worst of it was to the east. But that was a humdinger of a storm. I remember in the Hudson. I couldn't go home. Because everything was shut down. All the parkways were closed. Parts of the Bronx River Parkway looked like a canal after that storm moved on by. It was just unbelievable.
Well, we don't have anything like that in the cards this week, so that's good. And as we check out the watches,
I think Sarah brings up a good point. It was a hot, dry summer. In fact, there was something like 19 or 20 days in July alone where the temperature was above 90, and there were actually a few 100-degree days as well. I mean, it was day after day of heat, and yeah, there really wasn't all that much in terms of rainfall. And then came September, and then late in September came Floyd. So,
and by the way, the winter of 99-2000 sucked, just so you know. Just putting it out there.
There you go.
All right, we've got flood watches and flash flood warnings up for much of central and eastern North Carolina. They still have wind advisories up. All the tropical storm warnings are done. The potential tropical cyclone is potential no more. Became pretty obvious this morning that it only had a handful of hours to close off and make a well-defined center, and it just never really did. Just looking at it, watching it on the satellite and radar, yeah, there were some wind gusts to 50 and 55 miles an hour offshore, Some gale force winds along the coast, certainly, but it just never really strengthened to the point where they could designate it as a tropical cyclone. And we have some coastal flood advisories up for Southeast Virginia, as well as areas up to the north of Delaware and over the Delmarva Peninsula, because there will be some tidal issues. You got that full moon coming up tonight. It's tonight or tomorrow night? It's tonight?
Tomorrow night.
Tomorrow night. So, tides are going to be on the high side in the cycle. Otherwise, most of the country is quiet. There's some wind advisory issues in the southwest and a couple of high wind watches in parts of Wyoming and into Montana. And that's really about it from the standpoint of adverse weather. This is very much a September, you know, type of look where you don't have a lot going on other than the tropical system or the semi-tropical system. And here's the satellite loop, and you can see the rotation is there. There's also a lot of lightning strikes going on near the Carolina coast. There's some strong thunderstorms that are sweeping up, and that's where SPC's got some severe weather risks in play. The rotation is moving northwestward into central North Carolina. Clouds have pushed up into Virginia and West Virginia, but it actually remains relatively clear from Maine. There's some high clouds up to about the Hudson Valley and Long Island, but there's big breaks in those high clouds. The heavier overcast is still to the south, and that moisture is going to be coming up over time. You got the onshore flow with the east wind kicking in. That's also going to probably help to cause an increasing cloud cover during the day tomorrow, but I don't think we'll see any rain during the day Tuesday. Meanwhile, on the back side of this, if you were in Indiana, if you're in Kentucky, down through much of Tennessee, and into northern Georgia, it was a gorgeous day today. We had blue skies, a nice breeze, nice northwest breeze at about 15 to 20 miles an hour at times, and it just felt great outside. Beautiful day. Air actually felt to be on the dry side. The dew points weren't all that high. There's still some leftover remnant moisture from Francine in parts of Arkansas and northern Mississippi. It's not really doing very much. We don't see any lightning strikes there. We do see thunderstorm action up in northwest Minnesota and northeast North Dakota, and also coming out of Nevada and Utah, moving northward into Idaho and western areas of Wyoming and Montana. And that is where the radars are busy. You can see it here on the wide shot. A lot of action here out in the west. Clusters in Idaho and into northern Nevada and even northern California. Also in eastern Colorado down to New Mexico and up to Wyoming and Montana. We've got some heavier thunderstorms and even some severe thunderstorms in northern parts of North Dakota. A few flash flood warnings there too. And some speckles of showers and downpours from Arkansas southeast to the Florida Panhandle. And here's the stuff in North Carolina. We've got 4 flash flood warnings up at the moment in those green boxes that you see, and the heavy rain sweeping back toward the west. It kind of just looks like a very small comma here that's lifting up slowly. And I think, Joe, you're going to probably see this rain spread, sort of spread itself out. I don't think this is going to be a big rain producer for the Northeast and for the northern mid-Atlantic states. It might be heavier, certainly if you're, South Jersey, South Pennsylvania, southward, maybe you get into some heavier rain. But the real heavy stuff is going to be in North Carolina and probably moving into parts of southern and western, south central, southwestern, and western Virginia into West Virginia.
Yeah, that's where all of the rain is going to be. It looks like, Joe. I agree with you 100% on that. And as I mentioned last night, the GFS has been on this now for the better part of the last 2 weeks. In fact, if you looked at the long range weather maps for this time frame, 16th of September, if you look, let's say, at the GFS on September 1st or 2nd for this time frame, it almost looked like they were trying to bring a hurricane, or at least a very strong nor'easter, up along the Atlantic seaboard right into our area and dumping large quantities of rain over us as well. And that obviously is not going to be the case, although admittedly they did get it right with some kind of a coastal disturbance, although now the disturbance is inland and there is quite a bit of rain affiliated with that, but also to our south, we may very well see a break in this dry spell that we've been in for many, many, many days by Wednesday and Thursday of this week. But really, it's not the same as what was forecast, 1 to 2 weeks ago, when it looked like we were going to be in line for a really significant or substantial amount of rain. That does not look like it's going to happen now.
By the way, the GFS was pretty much spot on in the short range with this. It never really got, it showed a deepening, it showed a bit of a deepening low, but not enough. It also was correct in bringing it ashore this afternoon, as opposed to the European, which wanted to keep dropping it southward to offshore South Carolina and not bringing it onshore until sometime later on Tuesday. So that turned out to be dead wrong. The GFS, I think, as a whole, has done much better this hurricane season than the European. To be quite honest, to the point where I haven't really even been checking the European from day to day, unless somebody reminds me to look at it. I've been just kind of sticking with the GFS because it just seems to be, the model that's working at the moment. The Storm Prediction Center, we've got marginal to slight risk in eastern North Carolina. I noticed that there was a tornado warning in one of the coastal counties about an hour or so ago, but that's gone at the moment anyway, as of a couple of minutes before 8 o'clock here, 1 minute before 8 o'clock Eastern time. I don't see any warnings that are up. We do have a marginal to slight risk also up in North Dakota and into it's this northwestern Minnesota. My mouse is being evil on me. Hold on a second here. Better see if I can pull the battery out. Anyway. Okay, there it is. And it came back. We got a marginal risk also in the southwest, extending from eastern Arizona and western New Mexico, northwestward through southwest Colorado, Utah, northern Nevada into southern Idaho. So that's what's going on over there. For tomorrow, we have action is going to be in the plains, in the western plains, from New Mexico and northwest Texas all the way up into eastern Montana and western North Dakota. We've got a marginal to slight risk and a 2% tornado risk in northeast Montana. And for Wednesday into Thursday, no severe weather is forecast. We do have general thunderstorms being indicated from central New Jersey and central Pennsylvania southward, the southern half of Pennsylvania southward down to Florida and west across the Gulf states. But if you're in the Ohio Valley, the Tennessee Valley, much of the deep south back to Texas, the Great Lakes, and the Northeast, no thunderstorms are being forecast there. Some more thunderstorms, general thunderstorm activity in the plains and also in California and in Nevada. And as for rainfall, and I kind of agree with this, half to 3/4 of an inch is what WPC is giving for southern and southeastern New England to Long Island, central and South Jersey, and point southward. And then the numbers pick up an additional several inches or more across much of North Carolina, southeast Virginia, several to maybe as much as 5 or 6 inches near the coast. But I don't think we're going to see those big rains get all the way up.
And yeah, I was just looking, Joe, at Le Plumes. And
yes.
For New York City, between now and 12Z Friday morning, they are calling for about 4/10 of an inch of rain. Most of that coming beginning sometime, would you believe, late on Wednesday, early Thursday. They're actually holding off on the precipitation as long as possible. So if you're worried about any wet weather, it ain't coming until, again, later in the week. And it does not look like we're going to be seeing the tremendous amounts that they have seen already in the Carolinas and what they will see in other places to our south. By the way, while they've got 4/10 of an inch projected here in New York City, in other areas like the Hudson Valley, White Plains, 3/10 of an inch and less than that further north. So the further inland you go, obviously, the less the chances or the lowering of the potential amounts, as opposed to, again, places that are further to the south and closer to the center of this disturbance.
Yeah, I had the digital forecast up for the precip amounts from the Weather Service, and I'm trying to update it now. This is through Thursday evening. You go up to Hudson Valley, at points north, it's a quarter of an inch or less. I mean, you get up to Albany, it's 400ths, Binghamton 300. So you're really, not showing very much there. Across southern New England and southeastern New England, half to three quarters right near the coast. There's some 2 inch amounts that they're indicating for Nantucket and Hyannis. There's a 2.04 there. There's a 1.07 up at Cape Cod. But that's the exception, really. Long Island rainfall amounts, they actually have inch plus for eastern Long Island, the South Fork on eastern Long Island, but much lower amounts of a half an inch or less as you go west. Northern New Jersey, it's mostly a third of an inch. You start to get to half to three quarters when you get to central and South Jersey. And then, of course, further south, you can see 3 inch amounts being indicated in southeast Virginia, some pockets of 3 and 4 inches in southwestern Virginia, 1 inch rainfall amounts pushing into southern Maryland, but again, nothing extreme. And here we go with the rainfall, and this is on top of what's already fallen. They're indicating another 6 inches plus for southeastern North Carolina, which is a big problem. And still sizable amounts going northwest, but generally 2 to 3 inches for much of the rest of the state. And of course, the amounts really cut off as you go south into South Carolina. You're seeing far less, and a whopping tenth of an inch is east of me. Nothing, just a hundredth or two from me. I don't know where it's going to come from in North Georgia because it's rained here in the last month and a half. I think it's rained maybe on 3 days. And when it's rained on those 3 days, we're talking for an hour or less. Okay. So it's been an incredibly dry summer here where I am in northeastern Georgia. So we, I need this pattern to change. I really do. My plants are not liking this. So here's let's go to the upper air because I think that really is more important here. We've got this big cutoff low dropping down into California. You've got a cutoff low that represents this, so let's call it a semi-tropical system that's in North Carolina. You have an upper ridge that's built from the Atlantic across New England and back into Michigan. All the westerlies are up in Canada. That ridge is going to stay pretty much in control. The upper low to the south kind of opens up into a trough and then moves offshore Friday night. And then you got more troughing out in the west. The ridge not quite as strong going into the weekend and early next week, but it does build up into eastern Canada, which I think is going to be key to the weekend. And more, moving on as we go into the last days of the month, there's a tropical system that the GFS has been keying on coming out of the Caribbean and the Gulf of Mexico. It's been doing this for days now. And, in this particular run, it's got a fairly wrapped up animal that goes into the eastern Gulf of Mexico and into the Florida Panhandle. That's always, of course, in the who knows department. But overall, I mean, the pattern, Joe, to me, at least for the next 14 days, excluding whatever happens with rainfall Wednesday, on Wednesday, it's going to be pretty dry.
And that's pretty much what the Climate Prediction Center has been saying on their long range forecast. I haven't even had a chance to look today as to what they're calling for. Well, actually, finally, they're moving off from near or below normal precipitation on the 6 to 10 day. By 8 to 14 days, the leading edge or the northern periphery of an area of above normal precip is just about ready to reach the New York City metropolitan. But that tells you a lot. I mean, that means that they're really not expecting very much in the way of precipitation until maybe sometime after the 24th of September. And the 24th, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, is is a week from tomorrow. So there you go. Looks like we're going to continue to stay, on the dry side. Save again, Joe, as you mentioned, for what we may see here on Thursday or Friday, if you can believe La Plumes and the WPC folks saying it might be anywhere from like 2 to 3 to maybe 4/10 of an inch of rain. If you're looking for some really heavy rain, heavy amounts of rain that cause, possible flash flooding and that sort of stuff, it doesn't look like that's going to be the case. No, nothing like that. The story on this is basically just a relatively dry and tranquil period of weather for, again, at least the next week or so.
By the way, one thing that's really nice when there's tropical systems that go into the Carolinas, like this one, and there's dry air to the north, that dry air gets pulled down the Appalachians. I've got dew points dropping into the 40s tonight for me and staying mostly in the upper 40s and low 50s tomorrow. So, and I certainly felt it today when the drier air came in. So there's a plus side to these things depending on where you are with respect to the actual low center. Meanwhile, we do see moisture increasing. The dew points actually do come up Wednesday, obviously, but there's still dry air, lower dew points in the 50s across upstate New York and New England. It's not that far away. So, the rain's going to it's only going to be able to get so far north. It's going to hit that dry air and start to evaporate a bit. The issue for Thursday and Friday is if there's some kind of low offshore, which on this particular run, the model has sort of backed away from that. And then you start to see even the higher pressures in eastern Canada, particularly northeastern Canada, building south into New England and down the coast over the weekend. And the dew points drop back into the 40s across New England down to about New York City, with dry air getting all the way down into the Carolinas. So, we're gonna see. I think we're gonna wind up seeing some nice weather once we get rid of whatever's going on for the middle of this week. And here's that little, you can barely find the surface low by tomorrow. It's almost just like this sort of little,
Like
like
it's
this.
shriveled up.
Yeah, it's like an east-west open trough that's just lifting up. A non-tropical low forms south of Long Island on early Thursday morning, and goes out. And I think the only question is for Thursday. It might be a bit of a struggle to see weather conditions improve because you're sort of in this no man's land when it comes to the flow. There's no real push of dry air for Thursday. You have to sort of wait until later Friday night and Saturday for that high to start building southward. So at that point, you probably get enough drier air and maybe enough clearing of skies. But as far as precipitation goes, at least even as far as the GFS is concerned, I mean, it cuts the rain off in central New Jersey and never gets it to New York City or Long Island with this thing. So, very much, when you're in a pattern where it doesn't rain, the models will find a way to make the rain go away. And I think that's what we're seeing here, at least with respect to the GFS. And then if you want to look forward, I mean, there's no, I'm up to now on the screen is Wednesday, the 25th of September, and you still got higher pressures in eastern Canada down to the New Jersey coast. There's some kind of front a week from Thursday. And then, of course, there's a model trying to make this make-believe hurricane coming out of the Gulf, out of the Caribbean and into the Gulf of Mexico. It might be real. It might not be real. I don't know. We don't know yet. But it would seem logical that something would try to come out down from that area because that's where we have lower than normal pressures. But as far as any kind of major rainfall in the north, in much of the east, and go back to the Great Lakes and the Ohio Valley and the Northern Plains, no, I mean, and the Midwest, not going to see much in the next couple of weeks.
Yep. Well, what
It's a
else do
snooze. If there'll be a payback at some point.
Oh, I'm sure there will be.
There always is, and there'll be a payback at some point, and maybe it'll be a bigger than normal payback, but it ain't coming anytime soon. So we don't have to worry about it for now. But you know what we have to do or concern ourselves with, Joe?
Driller Jeopardy?
That is correct. Yes. Driller Jeopardy. So we're on this acting kick. Okay. So, um, so the question is, these are the five following actors. What was their biggest of the five following actors? So I will name the actor. You have to name the the highest grossing movie that they had in their career. Okay.
Okay.
So the first one is Dustin Hoffman.
I'm tempted to say, with Dustin Hoffman, um, Rain Man, or maybe
Um, I'm gonna I'm gonna pull this one out because I think okay, he's got the movie and the actor, I think, kind of wrong here.
really
Uh,
question.
yes.
You're questioning the chairman on this.
Well, I mean, I only saw this movie once and it was such a long time ago. Um, does he's got Dustin Hoffman and
All the
he
president's
has no meet the Flockers, the Fockers.
really?
Yeah, I don't remember Dustin Hoffman being in that one. I thought that was De Niro that played the father in that movie. So we'll
Yeah,
hold on that one. Will Smith.
I don't know. Independence Day.
Very good, Joe. Ring the bell for yourself. Independence Day. Will Smith. Oh, so I'm getting here. It says he was in the second one. I don't remember. Anyway, that would be Meet the Fockers too. All right, because I think he maybe played the other parent in the second one. So maybe it was the second one. Meet the Fockers, the Flockers, the Flockers.
Another
Uh,
another another one for Dustin Hoffman could be The Graduate. His first really big hit, and maybe still considered by many to be one of the great films of all time. But that's
Plastics, Joe. Plastics.
yeah,
Plastics.
yeah.
Okay, Harrison Ford.
Oh God, what Star Wars would we be making reference to?
Um, yes, well, you're on
or
the right track.
or or
No,
what's his name? Indiana Jones.
you're on the right track with the other one.
Oh, Star Wars. All right.
Um, Christina Pedias's Empire Strikes Back. It's not that one. Not that one. So it's not any of the Indiana Jones movies. It's um, keep going, folks. So they're still telling you Return of the Jedi. No, it's not that one. Uh, and no, not the Fugitive. I'm going to give the answer here because I saw the first two Star Wars movies and I could care less for the other ones. And I didn't see them, and I'm not going to. Harrison Ford, Star Wars: The Force Awakens. Okay,
Well, there you go.
The Force
I was never a big
Awakens.
Star Wars fan. Uh,
Um, Robert De Niro, his highest grossing movie. Now, I wasn't aware that he was in this because I haven't seen it either, so I'm going to um, I'm not going to make a comment on this. You folks on the chat board may know better.
what was
Robert,
the Bobby Robert De Niro? What was the movie that he appeared as the boxer?
oh,
Uh,
Raging Bull.
Raging
But
Bull.
but the thing is, these actors could be in movies where they may not necessarily be the primary lead,
Right.
or even maybe they were just in there for a supporting role, and it was but the movie is known for somebody else. So that would be the what I would say about Robert De Niro. So we could it's not The Godfather 2, I'll just throw that out there. And Goodfellas, no, it wasn't that one. Robert De Niro. Yeah, I would never have guessed this, but he's got the Joker. I didn't know that he was in the Joker. But again,
Huh.
I never saw the Joker. You know, the only Joker that I have my loyalty to, Joe, is Cesar Romero.
Him?
What's right? Okay, and the last one here is Sigourney Weaver. Sigourney Weaver.
Oh God. Well, it could be Ghostbusters.
No, it's not Ghostbusters. It's not Aliens. It's, but it starts with an A, and it's also a movie I will not see, haven't seen, and won't see. Starts with an A.
There aren't too many films I remember Sigourney Weaver as a standout. Alien and Ghostbusters are the only two films, so I don't
Oh,
know.
and then there was Melanie Griffith was in it. It was in the 80s sometime. She was a businesswoman running a company. It was, Melanie Griffith was, what the hell was the name of that movie? I can't remember now. Yes, thank you, Rich Rothbansky and Maggie P. They got it. Avatar. Avatar. So those are the five
Well,
for
there you.
tonight. I would never, again, most of those movies I have never seen, nor will I ever see. So, um, and that's all there is to it. So, do you have anything to add?
No, nothing. It was a relatively quiet day here, and tomorrow we'll all meet again, and maybe we'll say a few words about the ever so slight lunar eclipse that'll be occurring tomorrow night with the harvest full moon. Although the weather looks somewhat questionable here in the tri-state area, I think we're going to have a lot of high and mid-level cloud cover that may, well, maybe it'll make the moon look like you're looking through a mayonnaise jar, but we'll see how it all pans out.
Uh, Ruben Fairchild, I can't see your question, so I don't know what your problem is. Can you be a little less obnoxious about it? Are we in the Yeah, of course we're in the down process with temperatures. That started back in early August. The normals are dropping. Now we're into September. The normals are dropping faster, uh, probably a degree every 3 days or so. And that'll continue for October, November, and it's the first part of December. And that's pretty much
We were
it.
in the step down. We were in the step down process in terms of temperatures at the end of July.
Yeah, but I mean, in terms of the climatological normal, it starts to drop after around August 6th or 7th.
Yeah.
So yes, we are stepping down.
Yes.
Okay. Any hoot. Um, you don't forget Joe's hosting WestCon. That's this weekend, correct? Saturday.
That'll be this coming Saturday. Yeah. And
Okay, so
everybody,
you don't have any tropical storms or hurricanes to worry about to cancel your appearance. So that's good.
that's good. That's
All
good.
right.
And yes, any slight interest, because there'd be a lot of interesting people there. We're going to have the head of the eastern region of the National Weather Service there. We're going to have meteorologists from both the New York City and Boston National Weather Service forecast offices. We're going to have Gil Simmons. Some of you know Gil. He's on News 12 Connecticut. He's been there for many, many years, and he's going to talk about weather in the news media. So that sounds like an interesting talk. So if you're coming, it's $25 for registration. It's at Western Connecticut University,
That's
and
the runners of the conference can buy themselves bottled liquor.
uh,
I put the link is on the chat board. Uh, and so I just put the link up to the WestCon if you're interested.
yes, and yours truly is the MC. So you ever want to meet me in
Yes.
person, there's your chance.
And Joe will certainly use the opportunity to do a shameless self-promotion to the Joe and Joe Weather Show, which is on Sunday through Thursday at 7:35 p.m. and the occasional Friday and Saturday when there are storms around. Otherwise, those are off days for us, and we'll let you know if we're adding a show. We juggle the schedule around a little bit, and we'll see you tomorrow night at 7:35 p.m.
See you
Nighty
then,
night.
Joe. Bye.